G'day legends, I hope that you're having a fantastic day and so far a fantastic week. Now as always we do have a lot to go over. So of course we're going to look at the maps in the north, the south, the east. We'll talk about what is changing there, what geolocations are popping up, what areas may be under threat, but I want to compare that to then defensive works, both Russian and Ukrainian, that may show us where the future of this lies. We need to look at as well, mixed in, I guess, with the maps, strikes and maybe differences in now lost vehicles or POWs that we are seeing as well. I want to talk about aircraft, as we have seen claims for both Russian and Ukrainian aircraft, as well as a major drone attack into Russia overnight. And we have some satellite imagery of that. And I also want to talk about Nord Stream. Now, you may be aware that it's 3 years since the fall of Kabul, when the West pulled out of Afghanistan after 20 years, hundreds of billions of dollars, leaving then who we were fighting against better equipped, better trained, and leaving behind some individuals of which then were rounded up by that group. I don't think I can say the T group on here, but if you want to know my thoughts about this, I made a video on it at the time. It was one of my first real YouTube videos, and I'll link that down below. But I thought I'd just take this time just to say I have a deep respect for the people of Afghanistan. I really actually hope to return there. I've seen Western bloggers, journalists do it since the change of power in Kabul, but I haven't seen one that has the background in the military that I do. So if there's anyone who could help me with that, I'm all ears. I'd like to actually go to our old bases where I was under then the new command there, I guess. But I thought I'd take an opportunity too, just to shout out to a few of my friends and those veterans, of course, who have served in Afghanistan. But a couple of books, I like reading. But a close friend of mine, Mark Donaldson, Victoria Cross recipient. This is a fantastic book. It's been beaten up a lot. Really fantastic book about his life and serving as well in the Australian Special Forces. But he is a redhead and he is shorter than me. Now, there's some correlation, I'm sure, of it between Australian redheads and getting Victoria Crosses. If you're unaware, Victoria Cross is like the equivalent Medal of Honor. But Dan Karen, this is a fantastic book as well, but also redhead. I don't know, maybe it was the bullying in school made them really good soldiers. Now, a lot of you ask about this whiskey, this dog tag whiskey that sits behind me up here, unopened. I will open it, I think, maybe when this war ends. Now, that's owned by a very good friend of mine who's actually just released a book. I actually haven't got it yet. It's in the mail, called What's the Point? Very experienced guy. I know he's been sitting on writing this book and perfecting it for years, so I can't wait for that, Mark. As well, of course, we know that the Russians were in Afghanistan too, and a lot of you have actually recommended in my reading list to pick up a couple of books. So The Great Gamble, The Soviet War in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan. Now, I haven't actually read these two, but I'll let you know how they go to try and fill that gap in my knowledge base around, I know the coalition, but I don't really know much about that operation back in the day either. So let's get stuck into it after I shamelessly plug some of my friends and what I'm doing at the moment. So what I want to actually talk about straight in the beginning is Nord Stream. Now, this is massive. What we have seen is Germany has now issued an arrest warrant for an individual that they believe was behind the Nord Stream pipeline blasts. Now, this caused one of the largest ever human environmental disasters and, of course, has had massive energy issues that have rippled into Europe and, of course, on Russia's economy as well. Now, we know there was a lot of finger pointing when this happened, and we have actually seen other countries then shut down their investigations too. But one thing I will say to actually pull this off, not only getting the explosives, the expertise in diving and explosives. Anyone who's just done a PADI open water diving course will know that this isn't just an amateur job. And then to be actually hired from forensic investigation, surveillance equipment, all that stuff is so much better than I think a lot of people think. This isn't a one-off, one dude amateur job. That I can say for a fact. Just the diving alone is specialized. Now, let's have a look at what has been then said here. So German authorities have issued an arrest warrant over the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines nearly 2 years ago. The investigation, published Wednesday, the outlets reported that the suspect is a Ukrainian diving instructor named only as Vladimir Z. Now, imagine the turn of events if it was the Vladimir Z. Has he got his diving license? But no, it is alleged he attacked the pipelines in tandem with at least 2 others who were also believed to be Ukrainian citizens. The suspect was believed to be last living in Poland, but Polish authorities say they could not act on the warrant because he had left the country. Of course, this is through the Baltic Sea, Russian gas to Europe, particularly Germany, and has had large flow-on effect from this. Russia and the West have accused each other of being behind the blast. It was immediately suspected that Ukrainians were involved, but President Volodymyr Zelensky, he did not, has strongly denied the state played a role. What we will say is it doesn't make sense for Russia to have done this. It was a major flow of cash for them, and most people have pointed at the Ukrainians or the Americans or potentially a mixture of both. Now, this guy and 2 others approached the driver of the German-flagged yacht, the Andromeda, and they have issued then the arrest warrant in June. Now, where is Mr. Vladimir Z? The suspect was last known to be living in the village outside of Warsaw, Poland. However, he is believed to have gone into hiding. The following question as to why Poland did not honour the European arrest warrant within the required 60 days, a spokesman for the Public Prosecutor's Office said that the suspect had fled to Ukraine before they could do so. She said they had searched the residence outside Warsaw, but he had already gone. I say here, no links between the suspects and the Ukrainian government has been found, other than they're saying he's a Ukrainian citizen. 2 other suspects, a married couple who do not have warrants issued in their names, have denied knowing Z, and they said that they were in Bulgaria at the time. The German Justice Ministry spokesman said they were not commenting on the media reports about the warrant. So this is very interesting, and what I will say about this is I will be intrigued to see in the future if this will strain the relationship between Germany and Ukraine, especially if it is found that the Ukrainian government has had some role to play in this attack, if they had something to play in this, or even then maybe then the Americans. And if then that link is found, I'll be very interested to see if anyone in the government or agencies is or will ever then actually be held to account. So we will continue, I guess, watching this space. I also question is, okay, if it's said that he's fled to Ukraine, will Ukraine then uphold this arrest warrant? So I guess watch this space and we will see. Now, overnight, we know there was a mass Ukrainian drone attack against multiple Russian airfields. Now, it is said that these were trying to hit primarily Russian MiG-31 planes. These can carry things like the hypersonic weapon systems. And we do have then a little bit of footage here too. So at this airfield just here, let me zoom back out so you can get a look. So let's do a measure distance out to the border. So about, say, 700 kilometers, give or take just a little bit. We then see this footage here. So what we can see is this is an Il-76 plane over here, like a cargo transporter. And we can hear, this is not the longer version. I'll put the longer version on the Telegram. You can hear a lot of gunfire and then a major explosion here. Now, I've watched this a lot. I'm trying to see what is in behind here. Now, it does look like an aircraft parking area, but this isn't completely clear of if or what it actually hit the drone in this area, then this major explosion. So again, I can't comment on what was hit there. Wait for further imagery or satellite imagery. Now, this airbase just here, let's zoom out, give you a look. Now, what I will say as well, so this is some, say, 310 Ks away. We are assuming that these drones are launched from outside of Russia, from Ukraine as well. Now, with some of the attacks in some other areas, there has been questions raised to, is it from outside of Russia, or is it then partisans inside then launching these? So what we can see is where the airstrip is, and we're looking for these buildings in here too, particularly this one said to be an aircraft maintenance hangar. And then we get the day prior, day after, you can see then destruction on this hangar. Again, not clear exactly what damage was caused. One thing I will say is it does seem that there may have been some damage to maybe some airframes, as this is from fighter bomber. At night, the Ukrainians attacked 3 of our airfields effectively, on some of them unfortunately, but naturally the problem is the same. The further the airfield is from here, the more peaceful life there is, so further away of course. and covering a military airfield with 1 or 2 Panzers, so air defense, yeah, you can only hope for a chance. Actually, many people hope for it. So again, it does sound like in that there may have been more damage than we are seeing, but again, wait and see. Now, Ukraine, this is unrelated to that, but in the Kursk Oblast, they have claimed that they've destroyed a Russian Su-34 aircraft. There's no evidence being given yet, so wait out on any of this. Now, I saw this today, and it lined up with something else that I'd seen a few days ago. A decorated Ukrainian pilot has been killed in action. Alexander has been killed. This guy, he flew then a MiG-29 fighter aircraft and was killed on August the 12th, and the brigade had stated then on August 14th. Now, I actually saw this then the other day, and I saved it thinking, let's see if anything actually pops up of this, because with aircraft, it's so hard to know. There's so many claims floating out there. That is from a Su-34 head-up display. Second video is from a head-up display. The launch of an R-37M, this is an air-to-air missile, scored a hit against a MiG-29 of the Ukrainian Air Force. Now, this was on August the 12th here. The HUD is displaying 217 kilometers. That the kill is this, blah, blah, blah. The kill is MiG's longest range now. So we see on this HUD here now, so this is R-37M, and that the range as well for then tracking these targets. And we see this footage as well here. So it just lines up. Potentially that is the same one. So I'm just showing you this information. Now, the tow drone, we spoke about this months ago, and we spoke about it yesterday of these. The biggest thing for drones is electronic warfare, that the actual offensive capability against drones, or defensive, I should say, of shooting it with a shotgun or with a rifle or whatever other system, it's not that great yet in the amount of numbers we know of FPV drones that are operating, that EW seems to be a best bet. And I showed that footage yesterday that shows really clean footage hitting from Russian drones, and the speculation that it then is actually the tow fiber optic, like a tow missile system that you'll see like the Americans use or the Russians use. Of course, this negates all EW, and we get this out of a random page based on revolutionary communications control technology, which against existing electronic warfare systems is powerless. It's directly connected. EW can't have an effect on this. I actually spoke to a friend who works specifically in the drone world, and if you guys find any photos of this, please let me know. There's some problems with the powering, apparently, like the AC or DC motors on them, that is very difficult to get around. So it'd be interesting to see what exactly then how that is actually working. Photographs will come out of Ukraine capturing one or one not exploding. So let me know if you see that. I can't be all eyes all the time. So here is Ukraine, the center. Here's the capital of Kyiv. The red areas occupied by Russia since 22. The purple since 14. Green is land that Ukraine have taken back after 2 weeks, and blue is within 2 weeks. Now, this map, we know we don't really use this for up here, but it does show a grey zone expansion out here, and we'll zoom in on here because it will become relevant in a second. The better map we use for this is NOEL reports. Now, I don't know why this isn't tracking this better, but regardless. So we're looking for the blue check on this, similar to the red check on the deep state is Russian ground made. This is blue check, Ukrainian ground. Now, we can see then on the 14th, further advancement out in the direction of then Giri out here, as well as out on the western side. We see to the south of Kodonovo, and in this region here, we also have then Ukraine advancements, then making this area of control fatter as well. And it's always hard to know what actually kilometre squares is taken under control, what is claimed, what is grey, what is not. But give it time, like with everything I say, give it some time and we'll have a better idea of what specifically is happening here. But you can see then the Ukrainian advancements here. Now, one thing we have seen pop up a lot in the past couple of days is that there has been a lot more photographs and videos coming out of Ukrainian vehicle losses, of particularly these DRG elements that are pushing well out in front of where the held ground is to have an effect, reconnaissance by fire, and maybe be a leverage point for a larger main assault group. So we're seeing a lot more of those vehicles actually being targeted and destroyed as well. Like I said yesterday, we're seeing a lot of Russian POWs on photographs, and now we're seeing a lot of Ukrainian vehicles as well. So it will be interesting to see where this then continues into the future of the operations here. Now, down in this area region, we see then this blue, and we saw the grey zone shift on this map. We see where this water reservoir is just about here. We got some footage showing the Ukrainians here then pulling down a Russian flag. So it's thrown off the top of a building, the Russian flag there. There are some other videos of it. It's easy to find. But what this is potentially showing us, and let me get rid of that so I can bring it across. So if we see where the border has this like right angle in it, it's just on this road. This is where the geolocation of that was. So it's just about where my cursor is. But what this may tell us is that this border crossing on this road has been opened up and taken by Ukraine as well. So another avenue to get logistics and troops and rotation of elements into this area. There are reports currently that Ukraine is rotating elements of troops for fatigue, but also for due to casualties that have been received. So we will see how that rotation occurs, who comes in, how that looks. We do know that on rotation is a very vulnerable point for any military. So we're seeing the continued expansion here, and we'll see what this looks like then into the future. Let's have a look on then the Syriac map update. Now let's zoom in. He's showing the same area of advancement up here where we saw that flag come down, and out to the east, Nigiri as well. The situation in this district became clearer. Last 2 days, the Ukrainian army crossed the border and sector and took control of these areas. That's what we're talking about. Southwest of Suja, sorry, I can't pronounce it, which is down in this area here. Ukrainian forces took control over these localities. In the rest of the axis, the fighting with the Russian army continues. So in some areas, it has been a bit more stable. In other areas, it's still then continuing to push. So again, it's very foggy on exactly what is happening here. It's not as easy to say this is where the front line is when we've got DRG elements. It's not as easy as it is maybe in the east where we see an attritional grinding war forwards. Now, we're getting a lot of photographs like this, and this is Lugov, same Kursk Oblast, where Russia are digging in defensive works. We see this one here. We can see some geolocations of where defensive works may be sitting, well outside of where is controlled territory or grey zone at the moment. Now, something I want to show you, let's go into then this map, which shows more of these defensive works. Now, what some people have said is there going to be then Ukraine push right up to these defensive works, potentially through them? But if Ukraine, can I draw? No, maybe not. Anyway, if Ukraine get up to these defensive works, then how will all of this look as Russia are digging in? Could it be a plan for Russia here to forget the optics of this push in, this success by Ukraine into this area, forget the optics of, forget how it looks, forgo a bit of land? Would Ukraine stay and then occupy that territory, or would they then choose to withdraw? Because we can see where these defensive works are sitting, and from this image here, these are still a long way out from where Ukraine occupy, say, this 600 to 1,000 square kilometers at the moment. So it would be maybe over double that. The problem is that then has a huge extension to Ukraine's front line. And we know with the manpower shortages, a huge extension to your front line may not be in your favor of wanting to have a much larger front line somewhere else. So again, like we've said, it's not 100% clear what Ukraine's goal of this operation actually is. So I guess we will further see with these defensive works, but we know Russia is reinforcing these. Potentially there may be a fallback to those areas, and a lot of these small villages out around this area in here, I'm going to zoom in a bit, have been or are being evacuated by the Russian forces at the moment. So is a lengthening the front line in Ukraine's favor if Russia pull back? We spoke, and that's exactly what I said around Vovchansk area down in here, that could it just be just forgo a bit of land, make them, because they still have to then, Russia there, have to then occupy a new front line and then have further effect. And we can see the size of this here with these defensive works. So interesting to see what will then keep happening here. Now, that Lugov, if you're going to have a look, that's right up here of where they're building those defensive works. You can see how far out this then is. Now, we do know there has been small incursions in other areas, as well as some attempts on other areas. Now, this is footage here, and I don't know what's going on. I have a MRAP vehicle then a protected mobility vehicle, then trying to like rush the border in Belgrade. Now it does actually hit one of these blocks here and is stopped. Now, when I first saw this footage, I was like, what is going on here? I actually thought it might be a VBIED, like a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device to go in and take it out, but it's not. You can see from other footage here, because that's what a lot of people are claiming, from then another drone angle, you can see then this rushing in. This will be fully on the Telegram, and you can actually see then, a bit too far in the footage, you can see then soldiers getting out then of this vehicle. Now, one thing I will say, from driving armoured vehicles myself, there is no crumple zone. So if you had your seatbelts on or whatever, that would bloody hurt. So I'm not sure what the goal was there by that Ukrainian vehicle to rush that border position. Then we see the FPV drones really striking that. Now, we're seeing footage of this too. Some will say getting supplies, some will say looting, but we see Ukrainian soldiers here with a trolley full of groceries, namely Coca-Cola. But this is what I did say in this area, is logistics are very tough, especially if you're crossing a border somewhere. This is going to be Ukraine's biggest problems, logistics. But I did say in the beginning of this, there are going to be grocery stores, fuel stations, everything in here that will be able to buffer that for some amount of time. We also have this footage here, which was actually shared by RT as well. Now, this is a Kar-52 Russian attack helicopter attacking then 2 trucks with a guided munition. Now, some are claiming, I can't 100% confirm this, I'm not good enough with geolocations, but then these were actually Russian trucks. So it was a Russian chopper that actually targeted 2 Russian trucks. What I'll say, and a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but bloody blue on blue in war is actually way more common than a lot of people actually think. Sometimes between 10 and 20% overall in a lot of wars, especially at distance, especially like that through thermal with markings. I'm not surprised, and I'm not surprised we don't see bloody more of it as well, especially in a front line like that where it's very chaotic. And like we said, Ukraine's goal here might be to make this as messy as possible. So let's have a look at the maps, and let's have a look then at some other areas that are said to be moving. So we'll jump back on then the deep state map. Funnily, the deep state map is showing more like up to date on the Russian movements than really some of the Ukrainian movements at the moment. So we'll turn this on, and I want to come down into Avdiivka. Now, we saw yesterday then a large push in Avdiivka. If we can turn that for some reason. Oh, here we go. So we see this here, then we'll come up to the 14th. I don't know why they've got multiple on the same day. Sorry. And then we come then to today. Then we see this expansion of control out near Olivka, Zeleny as well. Now, of course, this is in the direction of Pokrovsk. Let's measure this. Some say 3 to 4 kilometers advance. But now let's go maybe 12 to 13 Ks from Pokrovsk, which we believe is the overall goal from this like push out from Avdiivka over the past 5 or 6 months to then gain. So this is still pushing forward, in my opinion, has accelerated since we saw the Ukrainian incursion into Kursk. And I did say it could be a tactic by the Russians here, dig in areas so that doesn't go beyond too far, push here really hard and make reserves have to then come down here and abandon this. It's not really 4D chess. I guess it's tactical strategy mixing in, but we are seeing this continually moving. Now let's have a look then on the Syriac as this is reiterated basically in the same position here. This may be slightly different, but look, give or take, we can see where Horodka is. And if we measure where it is, look, let's just go with these are showing basically the same amount of advancement. Now, this is grinding forward very, very slowly, and I don't like the comparison of square meter v square meter. I didn't like the comparison of that when the Russians pushed into Volchansk and everyone said they've made more ground than the Ukrainian push to Robotny through the defensive works. The attritional defensive works push is always going to have a far less square meterage, square kilometerage to casualties than other pushes you'll see, and that doesn't matter whose flag. That this up here to compare to this down here was unfair at the time. And yeah, square K v square K is, you can call it cope, but that's, if you're fighting through built up defensive works, is going to be different than into areas where we've seen a massive stuff up from the Russians not having defensive areas. But what we have spoken about in here is the defensive works are going to become more and more relevant if Russia can get in further through them or even behind them. Now, this map is not up to date. So what we need to look is to where Orlivka is. Now, by Ukraine's own map, Orlivka to the southwest of Horodka is under control. We can get rid of that for the moment. So let's go Orlivka. So right out to, I don't know why I can't draw on this. No, I've stuffed something up. So right out to about here, where my cursor is under Russian control. Now, what we can see is that with these defensive works, beyond this, it really then thins out, considering what has come under control near Ivanivka, Osheretny, Avdiivka too. So the problem could be, could you see actually a speed up of this if it gets between here, Pokrovsk, or even then bypass Pokrovsk into areas where there's not much defensive works? That's something that would be concerning for me if I was commanding soldiers in this area. So I guess we will wait and see what then continues to occur there. Now, New York, well, actually, let's just go to the south. We see a little sliver made near Krasnohorivka. Almost all of Krasnohorivka is coming under Russian control. There's been a lot of fighting here for a long time, and that's where we saw a lot of those turtle tanks rock up. We're going to talk about them in a second. Now, New York, we saw an expansion out to the west yesterday. Now we're seeing an expansion to the north and the west as well, further controlling this area. And we are seeing as well some flags being raised up. Now let's look on Suryak over here. Again, I'm not going to read through this because it's close enough to what is then occurring. 48 hours, I will, I guess. 75% of the town is now under Russian control, so we continue seeing then the advancement out of here too. But as far as changes on this map, there's no real movements, no changes other than those ones, and the grey zone shift up in the north. But we do have another few pieces to look at from Suryak, and other maps are showing this, but they're not the ones I use. So we did see around then Lipsy, Holoboki, this front out here, we did see that Ukraine did have a counter attack in here. Almost did flank the Russians Holoboki, but we did see then the other day that Russia took back some of Holoboki as well. Now, there are multiple maps showing today that Russia had some success in these areas again then overnight. So we can see where this right angle then road runs through Holoboki, this red dot, that down along then this reservoir that Russia had an advancement there. And there has been some footage show up. I can't show you the footage. Again, I'll chuck it on Telegram of these turtle tanks being used. So these are on, say, like a T-72 hull. That's just a guess, but they're on a tank hull with then the turtle, like the sheet metal or thick metal over the top, and a number of troops using this. It's basically using then a tank as like an infantry fighting vehicle for troops being able to sit on top and protected somewhat by shrapnel. They won't be by, say, drones like an RPG on it that will have like a penetrating charge, but just shrapnel from something landing close or artillery, it will do something. So we're seeing those used there as well. Now, again, take the piss out of them all you want, but the break into areas like Krasnohorivka as well in Novomaylivka, we did see those being used and to success there too. But again, can get bogged down and have large losses. Now, this Vodyany Ugledar Konstantinivka front, this is an area which is funny to know exactly what is happening here, but let's look at where the grey zone is right up to this road. So we assume this road, if it's being used, will only be by heavily armoured vehicles, maybe not by then logistics, but this does connect Konstantinivka to Ugledar. Otherwise, you have to bypass through these towns from Konstantinivka. And we did see that Russia had movement up into Konstantinivka and Paraskovskia a couple of weeks back by Suryak, but only in the last couple of days by this map. Suryak again, this is the road running through. You can see the road. This is Ugledar. Then this is Mikilsky, and just filling in some areas here that are already actually shown on this map. So again, interesting to see. There's another area just to keep your eyes on as those maps are shifting in certain directions. Legends, that is all that I have for you today. Have a great day. Look after yourself, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.